that a lot of people had felt had gone particularly far left, and wanting to bring the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill back in line with everyday normal North Carolinians, and make it a place where all North Carolinians feel like they can go and send their children to learn and get a great education. And I think we've moved that in the right direction. More work needs to be done, but I think we've done that. And then, of course, am honored to have been elected as the North Carolina State Auditor, number 21, and working really hard every day. In the office, what we've done is we've restructured the office. We've increased the emphasis on investigations. I walked into an office with 2 investigators. Today we have 12, and that division is headed up by a career prosecutor who I recruited away from a district attorney's office. Because our view is quite simple. If you steal money from taxpayers and the auditor finds out about it, my personal belief is you need to go to jail. And so that's the approach we're taking in investigations. We're also have taken on the job of tracking and being a true watchdog of the people's money by standing up our Helene recovery dashboard. And thanks to you and other members of the General Assembly, as money is appropriated, the executive branch has been put on a shot clock, and so there's 7 business days to report to the state auditor how money is spent in Western North Carolina, and it gives us the ability to not only audit but to actually track dollars as they leave our treasury. Consequently to that, we've implemented a new tool, which is our special report tool, which you saw and people across the state of North Carolina saw last week,
Yep.
where we identified some spending on Helene recovery, the $145,000 a day report for one respite camp in Swannanoa. Not that we shouldn't do it, but that, $145,000 a day is a lot of money, and we still should be cognizant of how much money we spend on this relief effort. And then on our financial side, we're really working to modernize the financial reporting across the state of North Carolina, to utilize the newest, most effective computer systems and technology available to make sure that our local municipalities, our county governments, and our state agencies and universities, community colleges are financially sound, and that we can assist them in making sure that we can not only be that independent auditor, but be a place for solutions.
Well, and let me ask, I think you're the first Republican auditor we've had in ever, maybe? How long's it been? I can't remember one.
Well, Les Merritt was the auditor. He is number, let's see, if I'm 21, he would have been 18.
Okay.
So he came right before Auditor Beth Wood. And so Les spent 4 years as the state auditor, and then Auditor Wood was elected, and she spent 4 terms as state auditor, and then Auditor Holmes was appointed after Auditor Wood resigned.
Yeah. Okay, so we did have one then. We did have one because Thad Urey
That's
was
correct.
there forever. I mean, like
Well,
40 years or more, wasn't it? It's crazy.
It's a very, very, like I said, I'm only number 21 in the history of the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
So
I think we got about 30, how many, 38 governors or 39 or 4, I can't remember now. I want to say 38.
something like that.
Yeah,
51 maybe. I don't know.
so-
There are quite a few governors.
Well, Thad Urey took up a lot of that space. I swear he was there. I have to go look it up. I know it was at least 40 years, maybe 50. I don't know. I got my top research analyst on it right now, I believe. But anyway, so finally, we got a little bit of conservative control in there, and you are making sure the dollar. Let's talk a little bit about the Swannanoa deal. And I've been to Swannanoa, and it was total devastation. Those people were like living in a third world country. We needed to help them. But go ahead and finish, as Paul Harvey said, the rest of the story on this.
Yeah, and to be clear, look, responding to these disasters is really, really important. And one of the things that if we as a state can respond for folks that are hit with a catastrophe like Helene, a warm shower, a clean restroom, a hygiene kit, and a place to come do your loads of laundry, and then an area where you can find some respite and some calm and some cool is is completely appropriate and absolutely, in my personal opinion, for what it's worth, necessary. The the Our job is to shine a light on exactly how much this costs and the state of North Carolina in that one camp. And this won't be the only report we do. There are more reports coming, but illustrative is we spent 145,000 plus dollars per day for this one area. And that equated, we were quite frankly not able to determine based on how the money was spent an exact number on a per shower basis. And so we didn't want to report that unfairly, but we were able to accurately uh, account for every laundry load, and it was $220 per laundry load in that particular location. And it ran for 189 days. And so our recommendation on that is to, number one, let's be cost conscious on the front end and let's ask some questions instead of always just throwing money at a situation. Take a step back and ask the question, how much is this going to cost? And by the way, this was a place that was not implemented 72 hours. It was implemented several weeks later. Um, but ask the question, how much is this going to cost? And then secondarily, monitor the facility for usage and adjust as the disaster plays out and as the relief plays out so that we're not just indiscriminately throwing $100 bills at the situation.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this was the one or not, but there was one up there where the workers were able to shower and laundry, but they really weren't letting the residents do it. And I'm not sure if this was that. This one may not been, but we had these things kind of pop up, and everybody thought they were either FEMA or they were state ran or something. But come to find out, it was more private contractor wanting to bill back to FEMA. So it really wasn't necessarily controlled by a government entity, but funded by government
Well, this was
entities.
yeah, and this was one this instance that we reported on last week was funded by the state of North Carolina with state dollars through the Department of Emergency Management, which is, as you know, is Department of Public Safety. So this was a state-funded contract to a private contractor out of Texas to provide this. And this stuff is expensive, but we got to be cost conscious. I mean, $27.5 million. To put that into context and to give you perspective of that, the entire budget of the state auditor's office is $26.5 million.
Wow. So in how many days? So in other words, basically in a third of a year, I think you said, or something like that, they spent your
Half a
budget.
year, 189
Yeah,
days.
half a year they spent your
189
budget.
days. Well, they actually spent more than that because in our report, we do not include the salaries paid to folks that were managing that particular facility. We do report the salary range, folks who were brought in to manage that particular facility, and this is not included in the total $27.5 million. They were paid between $87.50 an hour and $147.50 an hour. Plus, they were given a $215 a day per diem to manage the facility. I mean, it's just the numbers are staggering. And again, I really want your listeners to understand the need for this type of response is real, but
Yep.
at the same time, we got to be conscious of the cost. I mean, we just really do. I mean, the need is real and we should do it, but at the same time, we need to watch the money we're spending, and spend it as wisely as possible.
Oh, and but we see this all the time, and all kind of different natural disasters come about us, whatever, and money is just disappears. You know, Encore, was it North Carolina Recovery and Resilience that Cooper set up for the Matthew,
Yep.
and I can't remember
Yes,
the other
sir.
one. Maybe I can't remember. Maybe Florida.
Florence.
Yeah, Florence.
Matthew and Florence.
Florence. He set up, and we're still missing and looking for $500 million. This, and maybe more than that.
Well,
That's all we're kind of sure of got gone.
well, you and other members of the legislature have asked, well, really directed our office of the state auditor to do a full accounting and an audit of NCOR, which is North Carolina Office of Resiliency and Recovery, and we are going to present that audit to you and other members of the General Assembly by July 1st. So
Mm,
within the next 3 weeks, you're getting a full report on that particular program, and so we're very eager. I have looked at preliminary reports. I think it's going to be an interesting reveal, to say the least.
any little tidbits of any information you could share with us today, or is it all still top secret?
Well, I don't know. Top secret is probably not the right word, but it. I want to make sure that one of the things we're really putting emphasis on in the auditor's office is being correct
Exactly.
and double checking our data, triple checking the data. I don't want anything that comes out of our office that we're not 100% or as close to 100% as possible confident in the numbers and the results. And so I don't want to say anything prematurely, but I will tell you that it will be a comprehensive report. There's probably more follow up that needs to be done because there was additional dollars that were appropriated in the last tranche of money
Yeah.
to NCOR to make up a
The
difference.
cleanup.
Approximately, yeah, about 271 million additional dollars that we're going to need to continue to track and audit uh, over the coming months. But our initial deep dive into NCOR will be delivered to the General Assembly prior to July 1st.
Well, I'm kind of, I don't even say I'm excited. I'm kind of nervously anticipating because I feel like I'm going to be sick on my stomach when I hear what you got because I despise waste and that's all I get to hear about anymore. So
Well, I
it's
mean,
tough.
and look, I get it. The state auditor is not always the most popular person in the room,
You
and
actually kind of are.
and
You actually kind of are these
well,
days.
I don't know. Just depends on the audience, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been criticized by not having any empathy or not having any humanity. I think was the word used as a result of reporting the cost of the facility in Swannanoa. Look, I've got no judgment one way or the other. We're simply reporting the facts.
Facts, just the
And
facts.
it's really important for taxpayers to know how their money is spent. And we're committed to doing that. And we're going to do it in an honest, straightforward way. That doesn't mean that members of the state auditor's office aren't humans and we don't have empathy. Look, I went up to I was in
Yeah.
Asheville 3 days after the storm delivering supplies. So I'm as empathetic as anybody, and I think we do need to provide the right response. But at the same time, let's be cost conscious about it, and let's prepare better moving forward. And I know this
Amen.
was a complete, I know, out of left field type of event, and it was horrific, but we know disasters are coming. And so moving forward, we need to be better prepared on the financial end for how to meet the needs of citizens in need.
Well, this ain't, this was one of our worst, if not the worst hurricane that we've had hit as far as damage goes and loss of life, which we're still trying to do the numbers and figure on. But this ain't our first time, and we get abused every time. And at some point, looks like we get smarter. You know what's the old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, fool me 100 and twice is where we're at now. uh it just hurts. And the sad part is we know these predatory companies and we continue to go back and do business with him, it looks like. And I don't know if there's just that they're the only thing left out there to work with or what, but we've gone and done the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'm pretty sure that's the definition of crazy, but I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist.
Well, I think one of the things that the state auditor's office can do, and one of the things that we're committed to do moving forward, is being more than just a reporting agency. We do want to be an office that is able to give the policymakers, yourself and members of the General Assembly, members of the executive branch, some really good recommendations moving forward. And I think if we don't do that, we're not really serving to the level we're capable of. And
Well,
so with that in mind, it's exactly why we did the report in Swannanoa. It wasn't in any way meant to disparage anybody or put anybody in a bad light necessarily, or to say that something shouldn't be done. It was more in a sense of, look, let's learn from this and let's move forward. Look, the the money was spent.
oh yeah,
Money's already been spent.
yeah.
It's not anything we can do to pull the money back. But it's certainly something that we can do to be able to learn moving forward from. Right? Let's learn from.
Well, like I said, I continue to watch this. We watched it with Encore. Now we've renamed something NC Grow to make it sound better, I guess, or whatever. Well, Encore was such a disaster. Stein didn't want to have his name anywhere near it, so he's now created his own thing. We'll see how that goes. But we continually just get abused, and
Well,
sadly,
I do have an issue like you do. I believe, or what I'm hearing in your voice, I do have an issue with the just constant creation of government programs.
yeah,
I mean,
and we
and
got same people doing the same job in two different ones because we haven't killed Encore yet. So you're talking about we've already missing 500 million, and we're doing duplicity to lose more.
well, I'm
Whatever.
a little bit frustrated about that myself. I mean, again, the governor has been elected to make these policy decisions, and it's ultimately, I guess, his decision to make as to whether he's going to create, grow, and how. And I know there's a time horizon on Encore, and hopefully at the completion of our full audit, Encore can be phased out because that'll save the taxpayers administration fees. Because again, right now, as you and I talk, we're paying for Encore administratively, and we're paying for NC Grow
Yeah.
administratively.
Yeah. And I will bet you a dollar to a donut in 180 to 365 days from now, there will be most of the people that were in Encore once it shuts down somehow or another magically grow and end up in NC Grow. And we keep that same level of bureaucracy, and they're going to say because they have experience. Now, what they're experienced at doing is not what I want to be experiencing anymore. But I'm just waiting, watching, and seeing. We always have a saying in Raleigh, especially old political allies never die; they just get new jobs, and so there you go. They live on for eternity. So this will be interesting to see, but I'm afraid it's going to be that sad tale of "I told you so," and we're still stuck. And that's the fight between the legislative, executive, and even judicial branches back and forth. But this one here is a boondoggle, and I'm sad. I just think there's a lot of people out there when a natural disaster like this happens, they start licking their lips. They start going, "Oh boy, here we go again." And I'm gonna get into it later on my show. But now the same contractor we had in Encore, we've also hired for NC Grow, and
That's correct. I can confirm that.
yes, and we've went through a whole litany of stuff. I'm gonna talk about it after we get off on the second part. But I, you know, I, why? Why? I know why, but why? I mean, why would if you care, if you really care about the public and you care about the taxpayers' money, why go back to the same person helped get rid of $500 million that you can't find? But we did, we have, and so I Real quick, because we're running out of time.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit. Y'all are even looking into local school systems and doing some audit work there. Was it Guilford y'all went and played in? I can't remember now. Forsyth is one of them.
We are, well, two school systems that we're currently actively engaged in are, one, the Winston-Salem Forsyth County
Winston-Salem.
school
Yep,
system,
yep.
and we're engaged in Lee County as
Okay.
well.
It's
Uh,
Winston-Salem's Forsyth. I couldn't remember if it's it or Guilford. I know
yeah,
it's one of the two. Couldn't remember.
yep. Winston-Salem Forsyth has some serious, or what appear to be serious, financial issues were revealed in by the school board and by this uh, the, the superintendent, who I believe has announced her retirement. Um,
Magic.
but 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 that's fine. You know, our job is to come in and really put some clarity on this situation. And we got multiple calls, and in full disclosure, I got there was a request made by I think every single legislator in that region
Mm,
for us to come in
that's a lot of blue.
as a
That's a lot of blue
state
too.
auditor's
Yeah.
office. Yeah, to come in and at least take a look. And so we are doing that. And look, our goal is to do it in a nonpartisan, data centric way. And that's what we are doing. Our team is involved. I had a couple of different initial reports out of Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools already. Got a quick update today. As you know, I'm headed out of the state to the National State Auditors Association to represent our state with the other state auditors across the country, middle of this week. But I think it's going to be instructive, and I think our office can be really helpful with Winston-Salem Forsyth County School System.
Well, that's the first time I've ever heard the auditor's office actually going in more into like the county, city, the municipality stuff. So I guess the old saying, hey, folks, he's going everywhere and doing whatever, because it's, once again, taxpayer money, maybe not necessarily directed through the state treasury, but still taxpayer money. And they're citizens of North Carolina. And the auditor's job with Dave Bolick is to protect the citizens of North Carolina.
Yes, sir. That's our statutory directive, is to account for public funds, whether they're municipal funds, county funds, or state tax dollars. And we also do the statewide single audit, which is auditing federal grants that are distributed across the state of North Carolina. We do that annually.
Well, and now drop back to the UNC system. We got North Carolina Central, and y'all been playing there.
Yep.
And I don't know if money's actually got gone, but obviously whoever's doing their accounting, they need to get somebody different. And I think they figured this out, and they still didn't get anybody different, and they're still not got it fixed. So
Well, they're in the our team is working really hard. They have a new chancellor, who actually was recruited away from Elizabeth City State, which had a tremendous accounting issue.
Yeah,
She was able to go up and clean up Elizabeth City State. So she's taken on the job and the responsibility of working at North Carolina Central. In full disclosure, our team is really confident in the plan for North Carolina Central moving forward to be able to get their finances in order. But we are in a monitoring posture with North Carolina Central to not only assist, but to hold that particular university accountable moving forward.
I think it's about $50 million that they were having to juggle around and couldn't figure. But I think
It's 83.
83. Oh,
83
well, it's
million.
grown then. All right. It's gotten bigger than I thought. And so anyway, and it looks like bad math. I'm not sure money's necessarily gone, but it looks like bad math. And then they did bad math for the last 8 years. I think it is.
We will. Well, we're still involved at North Carolina Central to assist, if nothing else, to assist the new administration in making sure, to your point, number one, that money didn't get misappropriated, and number two, misappropriation of money may also be allocating money in the wrong category or in the wrong bucket on campus, not leaving campus illegally, right?
Yeah.
But we also want to make sure that money has not been illegally taken.
Well,
And so we're working with the administration. Our team has been that we got some really great professionals that are career state employees who really want to serve the people of North Carolina, and
amen.
they're committed to helping North Carolina Central and other agencies and institutions across the state get it right.
Well, Dave, we've ran out of time. Hey, I think you and your office are doing an outstanding job. I used to laugh. With Beth Woods, I told at her thing when she announced she's retiring. I said, I know Beth Wood. When you pull into the parking lot, everybody's scared for one reason or another. I think when you pull in the parking lot and your people, I know why they're scared. Y'all are going to open up their books and you're going to make sure they're right. And so I appreciate you, brother. I do. And keep up the good work. If there's anything we can do over at the General Assembly to help make your job easier, you let us know.
I will. Thank you, sir. And I hope you have a great week. I know you'll
You
be
too.
heading back to Raleigh shortly.
Yep, be leaving this evening. All right, you too, brother. You have safe travels. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
All right, folks, hang tight. Be back for the second half of the show. Got a lot to talk about.
Of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Bravo, Brenda. You've always been a saver. Price matching your price matches. The self-proclaimed queen of extreme couponing. But this time, you've truly outdone yourself. By saving for this electric vehicle, you're locking in up to $1,000 a year in fuel and maintenance savings, which will leave you saying, cha-ching, every time you unplug. Good for your wallet, great for the planet. That's the power of EV. Sponsored by the NC Clean Energy Technology Center and the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters in cooperation with this station.
Hurricane Helene, devastating impacts on the Southeast. Now it's time to help the people and communities who need it most. To make a one-time financial gift to the American Red Cross and enter how much you'd like to donate. Or go to redcross.org/donate. Together, we will make a difference for those recovering in hard-hit communities.
This is John Stossel. Anything that makes it harder for you to speak limits your life. So if stuttering affects you or your child or someone you know, you can call the Stuttering Foundation for help. The number is 800-992-9392. That's toll free 800-992-9392. Or you can visit their website www.stutteringhelp.org. They can refer you to expert help in your state.
We all want more for North Carolina. More boundless views, more adventures in the outdoors, and more clean roads to get there. But to get more, we have to do less. Less littering, that is. Make it your nature to trash your trash and keep NC clean. And we'll all have more reasons to love North Carolina. Litter less, get more. For more on the 7 outdoor NC Leave No Trace principles, visit OutdoorNC.com. Sponsored by the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters and Visit North Carolina, a part of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina in cooperation with this station.
Folks, back here with the second half of the show. If anybody would like to call in, talk about whatever, I think Dave Bullock told us a whole lot. He's got a lot more to say. Some he can't say. I'll be waiting to hear about Encore. This is going to be pretty interesting to see how bad it was. 704-873-9929. 704-873-9929. Call in. Tell us what's on your mind. Talk about it. See if I can do anything for you, or better yet, just sit here and listen. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do. That's why you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, my grandfather said. I didn't listen to that, though, like you should have. I talked too much. Hey, real quick, before I get into a lot of the big national topics and stuff like this is kind of national. This is on an agriculture side that really, my ears perked up when I heard this and said, 2 Chinese nationalists, the People's Republic of China, and I'm going to slaughter their name, Wei Ying Jia, and Zhayang Lu. Yeah, you're laughing, Billy, but that's probably pretty close. You know,
Probably is.
who knows? Anyway, were charged this past week with criminal complaint with conspiracy, smuggling goods into the United States, false statements, visa fraud, and amongst other things, probably a seatbelt violation. I don't know. They threw the book at him, and basically what went down, the FBI arrested Zhang in connection with allegations related to Jianan and Lu smuggling into America a fungus called Fusarium geranium. This is a scientific literature classification. It's a potential agro-tourism weapon. It's a noxious fungus, and we call it head blight, a disease on wheat, barley, maize, which is corn. I don't know why we're calling it maize, and rice. So those are some of our main cereal grains that we grow here in the U.S. And really is responsible for billions of dollars in economic loss worldwide each year. When this toxin is in the grains, it causes vomiting, liver damage, and even reproductive defects in human and livestock. So, according to the complaint, John received the Chinese government funding for work on this pathogen in China, but somehow or another, she got a research grant and was doing this at the University of Michigan. So she was at the University of Michigan, and it seems her boyfriend, who does this work in China on these different plant funguses, wanted to come and bring one to her and work with it in her lab in Michigan. And now, if you're going to bring something like that, you would basically tell the State Department, we have this in vials and we have this locked in a case, and this is very scientific, and we would have to sign off of it. No, this was in a saran wrap bag in shoes in his luggage.
Yep.
I don't think that's how the State Department wants you to do that.
Nope.
And so, anyway, just tried to get this through the Detroit Municipal Metropolitan Airport, and luckily, doing a good job there, we detected it.
Yeah.
And then we've also was able to confiscate the phone and see the dialogue of text of them back and forth, like, hey, this is how I think you ought to do it, and stick it here and do that and whatever. And so this was a planned invasion. And so, folks, I know you're sitting out there going, huh? But this is kind of like the agriculture version of COVID, if you ask me. And this could do just massive damage. Now there'll be some to say, oh, well, we've got fusarium molds here already and whatever. Well, yeah, but this is a different type of species. This is one of those that are very, very damaging. And we don't need any more problems in American agriculture. We already got high pathogen avian influenza that's killing the chickens. And so now we're looking at something that's going to attack our cereal grain. So it's going to damage it. And then we're going to turn around and feed it to our livestock, and it's going to damage them. I've worked with this stuff a lot in dairy farms, not this particular thing, acting dairy and beef too, whatever. It's a form of what they call a mycotoxin, which is what basically a mold expels this as their defense mechanism. So when you go to disturb a mold, it actually puts out this thing called mycotoxins, and these toxins are very damaging to animals, to their gut health, to a lot of things. Some are deadly. Even T2 is one that will actually, if you get a high enough level, it'll kill 1,500, 2,000 pound Holstein cow deader than a hammer. So they're very dangerous. And so here we got two. So, back again, you got a lot of people that think, our friends across the world love us. China loves us. Hamas loves us. These people all hate us. Y'all got to understand, they hate. And because a lot of them aren't of a Christian nature, they don't. Hate is what they have. There's love is not the object to a neighbor, to a friend. And so once again, we put ourselves in danger here, and this could be smuggled in a lot of different ways. Thank God this time we stopped them because they were just stupid. I mean, if this is something China's planning on doing to us, you know, and the funny thing is, China's one of our largest buyers, or were. They're not anymore. Over the last 8 to 10 years, they've really slacked off, but we're one of our largest exporters. We exported to them, and now they may be trying to sabotage what we are doing here because they're buying a lot in South America. So I'm just telling you that it's not a nice world out there, and we got to beware. We got to understand that everybody says, "Oh, I can't believe we don't run around the world and fix this problem and run around the world and fix that problem." We better start building that wall around the whole daggum country. I'm just saying, this is scary, and this could be so detrimental. So once again, thank goodness, I think we caught them this time.
Yep.
But how many other times are they going to try? And they could be a whole lot clever. They could do it a whole lot easier. You know, I look at all the problems that's come in Chinese sheetrock. There's been all kind of stuff. That's where your stink bug basically showed up from China.
Is that right?
Sheetrock. Yes.
Wondered where those, because they are pervasive.
Well, they are, and you know, like I said, they showed up in containers when sheetrock got real high way back there. Was it 10, 15 years ago? They come over, and we didn't do a good job of fumigating and making sure and checking that. And so now we put up with them, and you know, everybody says, well, they're not hurting anything. I don't know. I don't know whether they can carry diseases. I don't know what they are, but we didn't have them, and now we do.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things they got in China we don't need, and we're talking now in the Farm Act. Not only talking about raw milk, but there's a provision in there that talks about being able to give different chemistry companies, chemical companies, carte blanche liability. You can't sue them over the Roundup. Well, they also put a clause in there in any future chemicals.
Oh,
yeah,
not necessarily, but any future.
Yeah, we don't know. It's the Joe Biden pardon. You ain't done a crime yet, but when you do, you're okay. We got you covered. I got a real problem with this, so we got to look at this. And we've ran all the chemical companies out, and I talked a little bit this on the last show. We ran them all out of the country, and so now everything's made usually in another country, and a lot of them aren't made for. And friends of ours, one of the second largest in the world is Kim China. That's a chemical company there, and they're selling stuff to us here in the States that they will not allow them to use in China. How bad's that? Because I think they're about to do anything to their own people.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
all right, we'll jump off of that real quick. But just thought I'd bring that attention. That didn't get a lot of press, and people in agriculture, we perked up. We looked. So, like I said, anybody want to call, talk about whatever, 704-873-9929. Talking about the economy, had another jobs report rolled in out of May and added about 140,000 jobs. The important thing, a lot of people saying, oh, well, that's not that many jobs and this, that, and the economy's getting ready to tank and yada, yada. We're adding jobs now under Trump that are private sector jobs. All the jobs, just about, if you look back, 60 to 70% of the reports every month during Biden were government or Medicare, medical some way or another, which still kind of leaks to government in a lot of ways through Medicare and Medicaid. That's why I got ahead of myself a little bit there. So these are 140,000 private sector. So these jobs are being added. You got to understand, we're firing government. They're letting government jobs, they're firing them, and we're still adding plus 140,000, keeping the unemployment rate around 4.2. So maybe some of these people, I don't know. I figured they were going to sit, wait, be in the figures and suck up their severance pay and then jump back in. But maybe some of them went ahead and said, no, I want to go to work. I can do whatever. Great. That's what I want them to do. Go to work, private sector, pay your taxes. Don't be the drain, be the plus. Be the plus. So this is really interesting. And we've got the riots going on out in LA. We've actually deported about 750,000 illegal immigrants that are in our country. So we're still adding jobs, and we're getting rid of people, and we're laying off people. Now, the economists can tell you all they want.
Right.
But these are the same liberal economists that always say, for whenever Republicans end, oh, that tax cut's never going to help the economy. That's going to add, and then our economy grows. Because we know as taxpayers how to spend our hard-earned money better than the government ever does and more efficiently. And it just flabbergasted me every time. We did this in the House and in the Senate in North Carolina, and I heard all kind of people get up on the other side, one claiming to be an economic PhD, and tell us how wrong we were, and our money kept growing. And they were just astonished.
How about that?
It was freak. It wasn't. There's no way that could be theoretically correct. It was just luck, pure luck, pure luck.
Well, I see too where the tariffs are now starting to show the positive effects
It's
of
coming.
in our economy.
It's coming. It's
Yeah.
coming. And you got you got Google going to spend. I think it's Google is going to spend about $10 billion in Richmond County. And my gosh, I thought you could have bought the county for that. There's nothing much going on down there. I got great representatives down there, good friends of mine, but they have struggled to get commerce in there. So this is going to be huge for them. I don't think this would have happened without Trump and the tariffs. I do not. I believe it would have been somewhere else. And then they're going to get a lot of JDIG help. And JDIG's a fancy word for the state's going to help fund a lot of things, road structures and stuff to make it work so they can build down there. They're going to improve their highways so they can get in and out. And it's going to be a big thing. So to me, it looks like, I think the economy's rolling along about as good as it has, and it's doing it in a better and different way. You know, we talked about how Biden staved off inflation by spending government money like it was going out of style. That pumped all that money into the economy. It kept making inflation worse, but it staved off recession. So now that stopped, oh, well, then it's got to happen. Well, not necessarily if we put people to work and they start putting money into as far as through taxes and their income tax or whatever they purchase, sales tax, you name it.
Do you have any opinion on the Trump Musk?
That's my
thing?
next thing.
How about that?
You read my feeble mind. Well, the bromance has kind of come to a bump in the road. So we'll see how this goes. And folks, I always thought this was a very unusual relationship, but I actually made me admire Elon Musk more. I always knew he was, a smart guy after watching what he's done and the stuff he's been on. I think now he's brilliant, and I think he's brilliant in a couple ways because he had all the left buying his cars. Then now he got all the right buying his cars. So I think that's brilliant. I get where Elon's coming from. He is looking at this from a deficit standpoint, a deficit hawk. That's one of the reasons he wanted to show how wasteful government was at the federal level, and it is. It's wasteful at the state level and at the county and at the city and the town and whatever. The government's never efficient as private sector, never is. That's why I always try to say we're better off bidding contracts and letting private sector do the work than trying to hire people and create a division or somewhere in our government. It'll never be sufficient. And so that's one of the things I think it really bothered him. And the great big beautiful bill is not necessarily one that's going to go in and cut the deficit, but it will cut taxes and it will cause growth economy wise, which I just talked about. That's why the lead in is. So you will see the economy do better. You will see more people. We've been paying people to stay home, y'all. We've been paying people not to work. We've been paying. Now we got completely healthy people on Medicaid and they need medical. And I get that. But every time we tried to put any kind of a work or volunteer, even so, okay, go volunteer so many hours a week, work so many hours a week. We weren't even requiring, I think it was down to 21 or 24 hours a week of volunteer and or work. And the Democrats fought us and we lost in all the different court systems and it never really got to the Supreme Court. Nobody wanted to spend the money. So now we're talking about putting the work factor back in and the Democrats are just having a fit. You can't make these poor people work. Well, how you get out of being poor? If you're healthy and you have the ability to work, we don't need you sitting at home. We need you in the economy. At 4.2 unemployment, in my opinion, there's really nobody hardly to hire. At any given day, around 3% of the population is unhireable for whatever reason. Maybe it's education, maybe it's disabilities, maybe it's this, that, and the other, addictions, whatever. So we're real close. So those ones that have kind of factored out of the unemployment, and there's people out there that are drawing different government entitlements that have been factored out of that employment. After so long, you just drop out of the statistic. And now those people, we need to have them back to work. Come back.
Absolutely.
I really truly thought COVID killed all the smart people and all the good workers to a point. It seemed like they disappeared after COVID, and that's not true. I got good guys that work for me, but I've seen it in a lot of places.
Oh yeah.
Seen it in a lot of places. So there you go. Now we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're also going to talk about what I think is the greatest conspiracy cover up of all times in American government history. If I can flip my page back.
Oh my.
Joe Biden wasn't mentally fit to be president for a while. And then you had the auto pen. Now, folks,
That's the first time I'd ever heard of that.
I knew about it. I knew about it, but I thought there had to be some kind of chain of command. And obviously there isn't. And we saw this, and I remember back quite a few years ago, different radio station doing my show, whatever. Speaker Mike Johnson and Joe Biden got into a tiff over natural gas being the export of it being slowed down and regulated where it was about impossible to do it. And it was through an executive order. And Joe Biden said, I never did that. And they went back and forth. And he said, yes, you did, President. I can show you the executive. He said, no. And this was like 3 years ago. This was right after Michael Johnson had got elected to Speaker of the House. And they went back and forth, and Biden was vehemently denying that he had ever signed an executive order that would have kept us from exporting natural gas, because it was going to go over to Europe, because Ukraine, their natural gas had pretty much got shut down because of the war and couldn't do, and they couldn't move ships out. And so we're going to ship it across the ocean in boats, which is very inefficient, but they needed something because they're freezing to death in Europe. And Ukraine supplied a lot of the natural gas to a lot of Europe, so they wouldn't have to buy from Russia, keep funding the war, and went back and forth. And so, that right there told me, all right, either he doesn't know what he's talking about, or somebody's messing with something, somebody's doing something and not telling him. And so I guess the question comes out now, did he really grant these pardons? He said he wasn't going to grant these pardons for his son.
That's right.
But he did. But he did defend that. So I think he did that. But what about all the rest of the pardons that he put out there? And the ones that, for the crimes, like I joked about earlier, for the ones that he didn't even do, you haven't done them yet, but I'm going to let you off of that also. And they actually did an executive order that stopped drilling and mining in Alaska's mining petroleum reserve, which is this huge place that Congress back in the late 1920s, 30s set aside for mineral and petroleum exploration to go out and we had always used this as a place, and they shut it down where you couldn't expand on anything you were doing there. And that really crippled Alaska's economy like crazy, because they depend a lot on the drilling and on the mining.
Absolutely.
And that's what this one place was for. It was, we're going to go ahead and cut out this because Alaska's huge, y'all have been there. It's huge. And we're going to cut this one place out. And I think it was about 50 or 75,000 acres. It may have been 100, a huge swamp. But this is where we're going to explore, and we're going to save the rest of Alaska, and keep it wilderness and natural. And so Biden stopped that. And now my question is, why would you shut down the place that we told everybody that's where you go and what you do? It made no sense at all. And so we've done that. So there's a lot of things. And so now they're looking at basically the 4 aides are under the microscope, but I think they need to also be looking at Jill Biden, because I'm pretty sure she was running the country between her and some other craziness, maybe Schumer and Pelosi and whoever else you want to throw in there. Maybe Hakeem Jeffries had showed up by that time. I don't know. It's really going to be interesting to see where this goes, and just how big of a cover up and how bad his mental state had really degraded to. And now we've got the lady that basically was the mouthpiece for their whole administration, wrote a book, changed to unaffiliated, and then they're hating on her, saying how bad she was. Well, it's funny you kept her. And so a lot of things are going to come out, I think, and we're going to see a plan. We're going to see a conspiracy to fool the American public. And, I think this, to me, this makes something like Watergate look like child's play. because they really duped us all into believing in this. And whose hand was on the button? You know, who had the code? Or worse, did anybody have the code? You know, if somebody would attack us, would nobody? Where'd y'all put the dang gum code? I saw it in the bathroom last week. You know, where's that?
What they used to call it, the football.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So who, you know, who was hiding that, and where was it sitting at? They don't have an idea. So this bothers me, y'all. I mean, you
But
know, that people go ahead and take the next step. And the funny thing is because of their conspiracy, is what I'm going to call this, because of their deceiving us, it really probably ended up costing them the election. I wouldn't have wanted her there, but Kamala Harris would have been the president there for the last couple of years, which probably would have gave her an advantage. I don't know, maybe not.
That's true.
So in the election time, so you know, they basically circumvented all the checks and balances we put in to have a president that is mentally and physically fit. And so it's almost like Weekend at Bernie's in the White House.
So but you wonder though, if the way this is looking, and Doge found all this stuff that was coming through, and who's the FBI director now? Patel.
Yeah.
Is finding all this stuff out. There's got to be a place. If you ever watch the movies, there's a place where there's Mr. Big at the very top, or the cabal is right at the top. And you can't get to them, or if you do get to them, a lot of people are going to go missing.
That's right.
And you just wonder about that. I think Elon Musk was being interviewed that one time, and he got to a point, he was like, I can't, I will not describe that, because I'm fear my family would be targeted, or I would be targeted and stuff. So he stopped.
I mean,
because apparently there were some big names.
Well, the swamp is real, and it is deep and dangerous. It
Apparently.
is. All right, we're getting
Thank
down.
Kevin, it's not that way in North Carolina.
We can't even get a good mud puddle. We're so secure there with Republicans in charge. So sleep good at night, folks. We splash out the mud puddle.
That's it.
So anyway, all right. And speaking of splashing out the mud puddle, here we're getting down near the end, but I got to bring in the crazy stuff again. I always come up, and so if you don't think them, here we go.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm putting this in the here we go again category. We're talking about the Office of Resilience and Restoration, and that's NCORE. You heard us talk about it earlier. Now we got NC Grow, Horn Construction LLP. Got a $81 million contract from NC Grow. They're one of the ones we're kind of looking at from NCORE on the Helene. Horn was involved in NCORE. Now, the bad part is Jonathan Krebs, kind of the assistant director at NC Grow, was with Horn LLC.
Oh.
Left Horn LLC not too long ago, gave money to Josh Stein's campaign and to the Democrat state party, about $12,800 max out there, him and his wife, and then $29,000. There's not a max level to necessarily the Democratic Party. And then, Lord knows, here he comes back and made assistant director to NC Grow. And next thing you know, the same people they used to work for get a new contract with NC Grow after they're one of the ones we're looking into in NCORE. Now, supposedly, I didn't get invited, but there was a fundraiser. It was a $25,000 seat a piece for Josh Stein. And the word on the street is put out that any and all the contractors and people that want stuff for NC Grow needs to come and hear the speech and eat the rubber chicken at the fundraiser. And so there you go. But all of this, $12,800, $29,000, and another $25,000 is not a bad down payment on $81 million. Now, I thought the funny thing was we bought Krebs in front of the joint House and Senate government operations. And his quote was that he doesn't give money to everyone that he meets.
Okay.
You think about that.
All right.
All right, we got to go.
Yep.
Let me say my prayer. We got to watch. We got to watch, folks.
Yeah.
I hope the Lord watches after us. Dear Heavenly Father, dear Lord, please be with us. Please watch over us. Please guide us. Please give us the heart of a servant to help our fellow man and woman and to help the taxpayers of North Carolina. And let that be the only reason we do this, is because we want to try to further your kingdom. I pray you be with us always. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Folks, until next week, take care.
Real Country is 550 AM WAME, 92.9 W225BD, Statesville.
WAME and Bunce Johnson Funeral Home are proud to present our national anthem, Bunce Johnson, where every detail matters. Call them at 704-873-7223 or stop by their location at 705 Davie Avenue, Statesville for your personalized experience.